Hello everyone, and welcome back to my garden for the June tour. Today is June 2nd and it is 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 Celsius outside, and you're looking at some blueberries that are beginning to ripen. I'll have to come out here and pick these as soon as I'm done recording so that I don't have to deal with the birds stealing them all. Birds are a problem with blueberries. Anyway, there's been a significant amount of growth in the garden this month. But there's not a whole lot of new stuff being planted, so this probably is not going to be as long a video as the May video. But here we do have something that has been planted since the May tour, and that is field corn. This is a red dent corn called Jimmy Red, and I grow this fairly often. It makes a cornbread that is pink in color. It works pretty well for me here. These stalks will probably be in the neighborhood of 8 to 12 feet tall when they have fully matured. This is a second row of tomatoes, mostly Amish Paste and Celebrity Plus. Trellis netting's kind of flimsy for supporting them, but there are a lot of the Celebrity Plus in there, and it is a determinate type, so it doesn't need quite as much support. Here we have butternut squash. This had been planted in the May tour, but none of it had come up yet. It has obviously come up now, and I am getting ready to train it all up onto the trellis before it creeps along the ground too much. So this is amaranth. It definitely has a bug problem that would prevent me from using the greens. I'm sort of primarily growing it for grain. I would like to try the greens, but I'll have to do something about the bugs. The damage looks a lot like flea beetles, but that's not actually what it is. I'll have to do some research to figure out what it is that's going on and how to deal with it. Some other stuff on this row. Lime basil, not doing too well. Cinnamon basil, that's doing okay. Egyptian spinach, this is proving to be another bug-eaten one, though not as badly as the amaranth. It has really started to take off on its growth, though. I think it will bush up a little bit better and have a lot more leaves on it. Lemongrass, doing pretty good. Stevia, looking nice. I need to harvest some leaves off of it. Oregano, also doing well, although it's creeping a little closer to the ground than I would like. So here we have sweet potatoes, and I am training them up some of this trellis netting. They don't naturally climb, but they can be trained up a trellis, which is a good way to sort of keep it under control if you're limited on space. And I'm not really limited on space, it's just that I want to pack a whole lot of stuff in, so I'm sort of artificially limited on space. So this row, off at the far end, there's some lima beans. This end has been filled in with black beans, like I had mentioned I was going to do in the last tour. So these are black beans. They're not as far along as the ones in 2 rows over that I'll show you in a minute, but we got some bush type dried beans here. So tomatoes on this one. I'm getting some leaf disease. You might be able to tell, especially down here at the bottom, on these cherry tomatoes. The other tomatoes don't seem to be bothered by it as much, but I've definitely got some leaf disease going on. These are sun sugar cherry tomato. They are quite delicious tomatoes, I'll say that. Amish paste. This is the only plant that has actually ripened any Amish paste tomatoes yet. It is the grafted one. This is grafted onto that cherry tomato. And you can see there's one getting a little red there. It's not quite ready to pick, but it is ripening up. Then the other kind of tomato I've got in this row is Celebrity Plus, the determinate type. There are definitely some green tomatoes down here, if I can stop my shadow from blocking the view. Here's what the sun sugar cherry tomato looks like when it's getting ripe. That is not a bird peck on that, it's just a shadow. And I also have some more that are ready to pick. Right here I've got some Celebrity Plus that it's a little green on the top here, but I could go ahead and pick that and let it finish ripening indoors, and probably will. There's another one back behind the one that you see in the middle of the camera. So this is the other row of bush beans that's a little further along. These are all black beans. They are for a dried bean harvest. They are starting to flower. Off over here, this particular type has purple flowers, so you can sort of see one right there. And we have sorghum that is growing nicely. It looks a bit like corn, but it's thinner. So that will be for syrup eventually. Egyptian walking onions, overgrown, definitely in a state of decline at this point until they will mostly go dormant during the heat of summer, I think. I have been pulling off a few and dehydrating them, but for the most part, there's far more there than I can use. So this one is planted since the May tour. It's some squash. It's looking pretty wilty. This is an unusual one. I have not grown this before. This is Cucurbita ficifolia, the fig leaf gourd. This species of squash is not common in the US. It's quite rare. It is grown in other areas in Asia and in Latin America. Some places in Latin America this is called chilacayote. It is a squash that sort of looks like a watermelon. I don't know if it will actually produce fruit here or not. I'm just trying it out to see what will happen. It's kind of planted right there on the corner of the garden, and I'm going to let it climb out over the lawn, out that way, and out that way. So in the bin style raised beds, the peppers have recovered nicely. They're growing quite well now. So this is, I've staked them, but here you can see a couple of fruit on this red Marconi. Peanuts are doing pretty well too. This plant doesn't have any flowers on it, but they are flowering occasionally now. And each one of these has a sweet potato. Some of the sweet potato vines are getting pretty large here, like this one right here. You can sort of see it's sent out runners way out there and way down there. So in these bins, the sweet potatoes are growing a little more vigorously. I think that the soil is a little warmer in these, so they've done pretty well. These are not the main elephant garlic. You can see that I am getting some yellowing on the leaves here. These will get pulled the same time as the rest of it. So this is like the biggest sweet potato vine here. Kind of going all over the place. When these vines get bigger and get down in the rows, if I need to get in here, I won't be shy about trampling them. These are mostly here to shade the bins, not so much to produce a harvest, but they will produce a nice harvest, I think. It'll just be more of an experiment. So over here, you may have spied it earlier in the view. Sweet corn is in full flower. It is a little shorter than I was expecting it to be in full flower, but it is looking pretty nice. We got the tassels at the top, and we got the silks at the bottom. So it will get harvested probably before the end of this month. I'll just have to check on it periodically once the silks start to turn brown. Over here, parsnips are looking good. They haven't bolted yet. Carrots, I've been harvesting these to sort of thin them out as they go along. They're fairly thick carrots, but not very long, so they're not really producing a whole lot, but I am getting some carrots every once in a while. There were some collards in this gap. They've been pulled. They weren't worth keeping at this point. They'd been a little bit too worm eaten, and they would have eventually bolted, so I just went ahead and pulled them. You can see that this spinach has bolted. I don't think I'm going to get a seed crop out of it. I probably just need to clear it out. Celery, maybe a little hard to see here, but if you look at the bottom of the plant there, you might be able to tell that it is bolting as well, as is the lettuce next to it. Celery, I'm not going to let it set seed. I will go ahead and harvest as much as I can get out of that. The lettuce, I am going to let it go to seed because I'm running out of lettuce seeds. So these onions, they are beginning to form some bulbs. You can see a swelling at the base right there. So they are forming some bulbs. Fava beans, these are up to chest high now, so this is the best I've ever grown fava beans. It probably helps that May has been a little cooler and wetter than usual this year. They are not putting on any new pods at this point, but there are a few pods lower down, like right there. I'm hoping they'll mature and set some seed. I'm probably going to pick off the tops to just have it focus on doing that. You'll notice that I don't have any black bean aphid this year on them. That's a little unusual. Usually these tips are very attractive to black aphids. Oats, looking pretty good. It's a little taller than I expected. It's up around 5 feet tall. I wasn't really expecting it to get that tall. Not sure when this will be ready to harvest. However, the wheat will probably be better harvested. It'll probably be ready within a couple of weeks, I think. It's not quite ready yet. The kernels are still green. The barley was planted here. As soon as the barley came out, I just went between a couple of the rows of stubble, raked back the mulch, and started planting. Mostly what I wanted to get in the ground here was this amaranth, but I only had enough for half the row, and so I went ahead and filled it out with some okra. You can see some okra seedlings there. So continuing back this way, past the wheat. Welsh onions, these were in full flower for the May video, but I went and cut all the flowering tops back, basically cut all the plants down to ground level, and they have come back up and are basically knee-high onions again. So these are very productive. I should probably harvest them more often. I have been drying some onions, but I've been focusing on the Egyptian walking onions for the moment. So I've got seed set on my rutabagas. They are apparently going to produce a lot of seeds for me. Not quite sure when they'll be ready to harvest. The pods are about full size, but they're still all green. There are some yellow potato onions that are flowering in amongst those rutabagas. When the tops die down on those, they'll be ready to harvest as well. And then elephant garlic. Some of it's looking quite nice. You can see here where I had a cluster of bulbs formed, and it has pushed the stalks apart. The stalks are pretty thick on some of them, like this one right here. So I'm actually expecting probably a pretty good sized bulb on that one. This big bush is a blackberry that I sort of let go a little wild last year, and so it has formed this big mound. I think that is just one cane. It might be two. It's not more than two. So it forms a pretty big bush. And there are some blackberries on it that are not anywhere close to ripe yet. Here's another one that I transplanted over from another corner of the yard. This one I do have a stake next to, so I can tie it up and keep it straight. Fig bush, really bushing out. And I am beginning to get some main crop figs on it. So I should have some figs come maybe August. And of course, down here in the bottom, my cushaw squash has started to take off. I am probably going to bury some of the stems to encourage it to root a little bit more along the length. Cushaw is not particularly vulnerable to the squash vine borer, so you don't need to do that to protect it from the borer so much. But it will set down additional roots at the nodes and can juice up the plant a little bit. So right here in the foreground, I've got container potatoes from True Potato Seed. I don't think these are actually going to die down completely. They are from seed, and one of the things that can vary in potatoes, you don't see it so much in commercial varieties because it's selected against, but one of the things that can happen in potatoes you grow from seed is that they may lack a dormancy period. So they'll form tubers, and the tubers will just immediately sprout. And I think that's what's going on. It is flowering, but I haven't seen any fruit set yet. But it does have some little flowers on it. The celery back here is bolting. That's all going to get harvested and those containers emptied into the compost pile. So partly because it's been a cool month of May, the rhubarb's still looking great. The seed stalks that were on it have been removed. I have harvested the seeds at this point. I have a whole cake pan of them drying down gradually in the house a little more, and I'm doing a germination test on them to see what sort of success I've had. The okra, it's been a little slow to get going, but it is taking off now. Cucumbers, those are taking off. This is a very small variety. It is beginning to set some, you can see that it's got some flowers on it here, I think, if I get down low enough. Yeah, those are male flowers, but it does have a few female flowers beginning to set on it. I'm kind of expecting to have some cucumbers within maybe another week or two. Have to see. Roselle is also finally beginning to get a little growth on it after a long initial delay. Similar story with cantaloupes. In amongst the grass here is some sorghum that is hard to distinguish from grass. This is grain sorghum. Lima beans, again, this is a different type. This is white Dixie butter pea. So it is a small seeded lima bean. Another row of sorghum that's a little smaller, so it's even harder to distinguish from the grass. These are some bush beans for fresh eating, for fresh pods. They are purple potted type to make them a little easier to see when I harvest. Over in this area, this is where the polytunnel used to be. The polytunnel has been replaced. I've got some fig trees in a line here, and then in the spaces between the fig trees, I've started some watermelons. And sort of the last thing to show you, I have some sorghum Sudan grass here. And that is not an edible crop. It's used as a cover crop commonly. I've got it growing here as a biomass crop. I'll be able to harvest this for green material to throw in the compost pile whenever I just happen to need some green material to build a new pile. So I have some sweet potatoes here that were grown in containers. They were just grown in containers so that I could take cuttings from the vines for starting sweet potatoes in the spring. So they're small containers. They were never intended to produce any roots. But I do think that they've probably produced a few small roots, enough that I can probably put them in a soup or something. And I just thought I would dig them on camera to demonstrate that you can get some production out of sweet potatoes in containers. You can even get some flowers. You can see one of the classic Morning Glory style sweet potato flowers there. So I'm going to set the phone up on the tripod and dig these up, and we'll just see what we get. Okay, so I didn't manage the camera properly when I was digging them up, but here is the resulting harvest. These are from very small containers, really. You can see the CD jewel case for size there. But this is basically what I got from containers. So you can grow them in containers. And if these were in a large container, they probably would have produced a pretty good harvest. Again, these sweet potatoes were just planted as really just cutting stock. There was no intention of producing any food from them. But I have enough there to put in a couple of soups. That largest one could possibly be used for baking. It's pretty small, but definitely the sweet potatoes can be grown in containers. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.